Today, I'm so excited to have the opportunity to be speaking with Rebekah Buege. Rebekah Buege is an LA-based American author, podcast host, and body confidence influencer who's helped thousands of women create a healthy relationship with their body via her platform, Confidently She. She helps women realize their body isn't the problem and reject the idea of perfection to focus on expanding their purpose. She's worked with Miss California and Miss United States 2021 and contributed to the Every Girl, Raw Beauty, Elite Daily, Bustle, and more. Rebekah, it's so nice to have you here on the show today.
It's nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be chatting with you today to learn more about, your journey with your own relationship to your body. So for the audience's context, Rebekah and I, we met as part of a fellow podcasters community, and I learned more about Rebekah's journey with her own relationship to her body and how she went through a kind of a dark, negative period in life where you start to nitpick at every little minute physical detail of your body. And it really resonated with me because I think, unfortunately, across the world, everyone goes through this darkness where they have this negative self-relationship to their body. And it's in large part colored and shaped as a result of the way media and messaging feeds into our own thought patterns and our own philosophy and value system in terms of how we perceive our own bodies. And so when I found Rebekah's platform and how she's really leading the way towards rewiring your thought pattern and your philosophy around how you should perceive your body, changing that from being centered from these physical aesthetic ideals to that which is more centered around the functional purpose of your body. I mean, I couldn't agree any more with that. And so, as a result of transitioning that ideology around your body, you really start to emanate the amount of confidence in so many other aspects of your life. It starts within your own physical body. And it's just crazy to see how much it really exudes in other aspects of your life. So today I'm really excited to be speaking with Rebekah to learn more about how to build confidence with your body. And so kind of before diving on into the topic, Rebekah, I would love it if you can kind of share your backstory to what brought you here today to become a body confidence influencer.
Of course. It's interesting because usually when people see me and come across me, they're like, you're a body confidence influencer? Like, what would you have to be insecure about your body for? Like, look at you. And that's the exact reason why I do it, because there's so many assumptions about what confidence is and what you need in order to look confident, or what you need in order to be confident, and specifically around how you look. Because we have all these assumptions about people who look a certain way, probably feel a certain way because of the context we have seen those types of people in through things like media and TV shows and movies and all of that. So my backstory was really a few years ago, I found myself in a very toxic relationship where I was looking to this person to define who I was and where my worth came from. And because this person was not a positive, healthy person, I started to second guess and doubt if I really was attractive, if my body was good enough. And at that point, I was really putting a lot of my identity and worth in the way I looked, because that's how people talked about me growing up. That's how I was seen and talked about. So that was my conditioning to see myself as a body first and a person second. And I think that's very common for many women because that's how we talk about women. We talk about the way they look first, and then we talk about who they are if we ever get to that point. So after I got out of that relationship, I literally took a look at myself in the mirror and was like, what happened to you? Because you didn't used to think this way about yourself. You didn't used to feel this way. So something must have shifted. And the root of that must have been you're putting way too much effort and focus on the way you look to define who you are. And I realized no matter what I looked like, there was always going to be someone who didn't like it. And so rather than trying to perfect my body, which is decaying and like we're all getting older, right?
Yeah.
So I was an economics major and I was like, hold on, our bodies are a depreciating asset. I should not be investing in a depreciating asset. That is reckless. So I had to turn to something else. And through my own healing process, I realized I've been objectifying my body because that's what I was taught to do in culture. And I need to look at my body for what it's actually made for, which is essentially three things: to enjoy, to express, and to connect with yourself, the world, and other people. So that's kind of how I got here. I was very broken in a place that I thought I was strong. And that made me rethink everything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's crazy to see how I was listening to this other podcast the other day where Ray Dalio was kind of mentioning this idea that, you really see this great level of progress when you combine pain and reflection. And so where you experience this period of darkness and such great pain, and then really introspect on such a deep level, like you were able to, and think, what is the value and purpose of my body? Like, why are all these external forces and factors really shaping what I feed into in terms of how I navigate my relationship to my body? And I'm so glad that you were able to kind of get out of that toxic phase in your life, because I think so many people go through so many, years of this toxicity that really takes away from their own body and their own expression of their body. So, I'm so glad that you were able to do that and are sharing this message with so many women across the world. And so, kind of on that note of toxic relationships and like your toxic relationship with the media, I'm kind of curious to learn a little bit more about how those relationships have influenced your sense of control when it came to your body and your own self-image throughout the years.
Yeah. So the main part of it was I felt like I did not have control over how people saw me, how people talked about me. And I knew that I was more than just the way I looked, but nobody wanted to hear that. And everybody wanted to talk about women, talk about me specifically in terms of the way they look and how we see this everywhere, right? Like that's the context that we see women in, even in things as simple as advertisements for, exercise clothes, right? Like running clothes. It's always in like a sexy way.
Right.
It's always in, it's always sexualized because that's like the most basic form that you can get someone's attention is through that animalistic instinct, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of advertisements and just putting women in such a simple context that is, okay, let's just talk about the way they look instead of who they are. And that's the main thing that I felt like I didn't have control over. And also just with the relationship I was in, I was conditioned in my upbringing, not necessarily by my family, but by the way culture talks about women to firstly judge myself based off of what other people thought of me. And so you can't control what other people think about you. So when you're putting your self-image in the hands of something that you can't control, it's going to be a roller coaster. So I realized I can't see myself the way that everybody else does because I don't know what people are going to think. And I can't spend all my time and energy trying to be what person A wants and then trying to be what person B wants and C and D all the way down the line, because I don't know who I'm going to end up being. That's always going to be different. And I know that I'm not going to end up being my true authentic self. So it just seemed like a big waste of energy and this uncontrollable thing where if your self-image and your self-worth is placed in the hands of other people, it's always going to be an unknown. So it was really everyone wanted to see me as, oh, Rebekah is the skinny, pretty girl. And I'm like, no, actually a lot more than that. Like, yeah, maybe you think that and that's fine, but I don't want that to be how I see myself or the only contribution that I make to the world.
Right. And so something that you've done as a result of your platform is start to shift that ideology behind, your body being seen from just a purely physical aesthetic purpose to that which is more centered around functional value and, the purpose of your body through, your coaching philosophy, the body purpose method. And so one of the things that I think is really difficult for people when they want to make this transition from thinking about the physical appearance of their body to that of the actual functional purpose of their body is that there's so many deeply rooted self-doubt that has been conditioned, like you were mentioning, from our childhood, from the way advertisements are displayed and how they shape and color our own philosophy around our body. So how do you think individuals should approach that progression from switching from a physical perception of their body to that which is more focused on functional purpose, given that there is this kind of impediment in place?
Yes. So it's a long journey, and it's something that you never stop doing it, right? So it's kind of like if you're in a river and the river is going one way, like you're being taken by the current. If you want to go against the stream, you always have to keep moving because there is forces going against it. So I think the first thing to keep in mind is that this is a battle that you are fighting, whether you like it or not. These things are at work. And so if you do nothing, you're going to be impacted. So you can do something though. So that's the good news, is that you don't need to do everything all at once. You just need to do small things when they come up. And so the biggest thing is mindfulness. You can't fix a problem you're not aware of. Okay. And so you have to start by understanding what is it that triggers you into thinking, I need to change this thing about my body, or this is wrong about my body, and be very, very objective and observant in that process. So not judging yourself like, oh, every time I see this person's Instagram post, I feel like crap about my body and that's bad. No, it's not bad. That's just the way it is, apparently. So then what do you want to do about that? You can make a decision after you've made that observation. But if you want to get really, really like tangible and specific, which I love to do, I think about my 5 senses. That's something that gets me into my body and out of my head really fast. So I will literally, look around me and start realizing, what are things that I can see with my eyes? That's amazing. What if I didn't have my eyesight? That has brought my perspective to a more grateful perspective already. So, and then go through the 5 senses. I'll just kind of like touch my hands together, kind of rub my hands together. Like, wow, I can feel things. That's really cool. My body allows me to feel things that are hot and cold and soft and rough. Like, that's a cool thing. Smell, taste, hearing. I listen to music and I'm just like, okay, you know what? No matter what my body looks like, I'm able to do amazing things, even just looking at my 5 senses. So that's like the groundwork of how I would have someone get started is in those moments when you're starting to go down the mental spiral, bring yourself into your body by going through those 5 senses and realizing like my body is good for so much more than what it looks like. And the way it looks is actually like the least interesting part about my body.
Right. And it's crazy because when you look back at those 5 senses, sight is only one of the 5 senses. So your body, when you think of it in the physical appearance perspective, that only accounts for 20%. Sorry, I can't do math. 20% of your actual body's worth. So I think that's a super great way to kind of ground yourself because I think, including myself, you're always in this like out of this world kind of mindset of how do I get back to like this center of gravity of like understanding what is the true value of my body. And I think that's a really great foundational exercise for people to take away, especially now within quarantine setting when people have that time to really self-reflect and really introspect, because now is a great time where you're not bombarded with all these different images and all these different advertisements. Hopefully you're able to kind of tune back into your own inner self and do that inner work that is so vitally important. So, for the audience, go ahead and take stock of that exercise. I'm definitely, after this podcast, going to do that exercise myself, because even personally for myself, I still struggle with, my own body confidence. So that's a really great exercise that I think everyone can kind of take away. And so
Mhm.
something that you very eloquently say as part of your platform is that, and I love this saying, is that confidence is a skill. And you've mentioned that you used to think that confidence was something that people were just innately born with. It's like, and that's something I've even thought myself. I'm like, how is that person so confident in themselves? It seems like they were just born with it. Oh, why can't I develop that? Like, okay, fine. It's just something that I will never have. But you mentioned that it's a skill. It's like a muscle. You beat at it every single day. You do some sort
Mhm.
of repetition. You do some exercise like this to build up that confidence. So I'm curious, you mentioned this five senses exercise. What are some other techniques folks can practice to, and incorporate into their lives to build up this confidence with their body?
Yes. So the concept that confidence is a skill, again, comes back to, let's make it really practical. So if you have never played the violin, okay,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that you will be able to pick up that violin and just start like shredding Carol of the Bells or something like
Mm-hmm.
crazy like that? Of course not, right? Like you would never expect yourself to be able to pick up an instrument and play it like it was nothing. But when you look
Right.
at people who have been doing this for years and it looks so effortless to them, you're like, man, they must have had some sort of like innate talent
Mm-hmm.
that made them able to do that. Maybe, but the thing that really makes the difference is how much time did you put into practicing that? That is what is going to make you strong in something, whether or not you have that raw material to begin with, because everybody has the raw material to become confident. If you have a beating heart, you have the raw materials to
Right.
become confident.
Right.
But it's what do you do with that is what's
Mm-hmm.
going to make the difference between someone who makes choices from insecurity versus makes choices from confidence. So, like with any skill, you have to identify, okay, this is a skill that I can learn. So, we've kind of done that already. And then you have to hone that. You have to ask yourself, what are the areas that I feel insecure in? What is it that makes me, what's the response in that? And how can I very steadily, slowly get better? How do I want to respond? What would it look like if I were confident? And then how can I do that in a very small way? So one thing that I'll work with clients on is they feel like they can't leave the house without wearing makeup, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're so insecure about the way that their face looks that they're like, no, I need to have everything perfect and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to recommend that they go out on a first date without wearing makeup, right? Like that would be like so scary, like never,
Mm-hmm.
like they would never want to do that. But maybe you go for a walk around the neighborhood and you're not wearing makeup.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You probably won't see anyone, but like you might. And it's okay. Like you're not going to die if
Right.
someone sees you and you start proving to yourself, like, oh my gosh, I didn't die. And I did that thing that I was afraid to do.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to just taking care of your body as well, confidence isn't something that you have like all the time, right?
Right.
So if I have the skill of playing the violin, and the reason I'm on this violin analogy is because I recently bought one and I'm like, I'm going to learn how to play the violin and do something hard. But if I become a talented violin player, I'm not going to be doing that all the time. It's a skill that I have and
Mm-hmm.
I'll work on it and it sits over there. And then when I need it, I can use it.
Right.
Confidence is the same way. It's the same. It's not something that you just like have all the time and you're just like, I'm just 100% confident. It's no, you have this sense of neutrality, this sense of
Mm-hmm.
calm. And that's what you are at a baseline. And then once you are in a situation where you're feeling a little afraid or you're feeling a little insecure, you can go get that confidence and be like, okay, I've done something difficult before. I didn't die. And this is what I'm going to do now because I'm going to choose to make decisions from a place of confidence versus insecurity. Because that's really what it is. It's what decision are you going to make? And what would a confident person do? And you can try that and then see how it goes. And you'll probably learn something one way or another. But with your body, it's more so about the way you measure your worth is going to become how other people measure your worth. So if you see yourself as a body to be judged, you are going to be paying attention to how people are judging your body.
Right.
But if you see yourself as an instrument, right? That your body is an instrument for your life. If someone comes along and criticizes the way your instrument looks, you're going to be like, okay, like, I don't care. Like that'd be again, like with the violin, I'm not going to be sitting here trying to make my violin look perfect. That's not going to be whether or not I love playing the violin is what my violin looks like. It's how do I use it and making sure I take care of it. The strings are in good condition. It's tuned properly. Then it's going to be operating at its like best. Right. And your body's the same way. You need to drink water. You need to move your body. You need to rest. All of these things are necessary in order for your body to be performing in the way that it should. So if you're not doing all those things, I suggest start there. Make sure your instrument's tuned. And then you'll realize all the different things there are to appreciate about your body.
Right. I love that instrument and violin analogy because I think with the tuning aspect, right, it becomes the very same idea with your body. It's like, okay, today, like you were mentioning, let's go out for a walk without makeup. Then the next day you go and decide, you know what? Maybe today my body just isn't feeling up to it, in terms of exercise. I need to give it some rest. But I think, wait, no, if I don't exercise, my body's going to, get out of whack. It's going to start losing its shape. And then you're like, wait, I'm perfectly fine. My body feels great. The next day, another tuning aspect. So I think it's really great that people can kind of start. I think that violin analogy is perfect where people can start thinking, okay, let's tune this little detail here today, this little detail tomorrow, and over the week and over the months and over the years, like you were mentioning, it'll then be kind of something that you can always draw inspiration from, because it's already been built into your like psychology of how you approach your body. So I love that analogy. And I hope that people, take away from this episode, it's okay to tune your body in different ways every single day. The most important thing, I think, as part of our relationship to our body, like you were mentioning, is learning different aspects about it constantly. And I think we also kind of get into this kind of quote unquote routine of this is how it has to be done. This is the defined kind of routine I follow for my body in terms of how I go about treating it. Whereas there's different ways to treat it. And you don't know if you don't try the other ways, how your body can respond and how it can feel. So
yeah. And your body is capable of doing so much more than you think, by the way. Like give your body some credit. I remember there was a time, I didn't like running at all. And I went to watch my friend run a marathon, and he was not a big runner before, but he decided to train and run this marathon. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could never do something like that. And as that came out of my mouth, I was like, hold on. I've never actually tried to run a marathon. I've never tried to become a runner. And I was assuming things about what my body was capable of based on just the way it was right then. And it's like, yeah, of course I wouldn't be able to run a marathon tomorrow. But if I was patient and I put in the effort and the time and all of that, my body could maybe do something really cool. So I did sign up for a marathon, train for a marathon, and run a marathon. And because of that, I developed a very different level of respect for my body. That was like, wow, I didn't run this marathon so that I could lose weight or that I could look differently or anything like that. It was to see, is my body capable of doing this cool thing? And the answer is yes, it is. You just need to give it the support and the tuning that's required to do what it is you're expecting of it. And so often we're so impatient with ourselves that we never give our body the chance to adapt to what is expected and then really perform.
Right. And on that last point, giving our bodies the patience it needs. I've heard you mention before, it's crazy how we give patience to others when we have relationships with our friends, but we don't give that same relationships to our body and understand It needs time to develop. It's not going to be an overnight thing, like you were mentioning. We're going to learn so many different things if we allow ourselves to be patient. But we ourselves are our own greatest self-critic. And so as a result, we're like, nope, I'm not giving you this patience. You're going to have to do this by, tomorrow. Whereas for others, it's like, no, you're going to be able to, like that marathon example, you can run that marathon if you train, but you're like, I can't do it. I can't do it. My body's not capable. And then, like you were mentioning, you're like, wait, if I train, there's a possibility I could do this. There is a possibility. And then when you start practicing at it, building up that skill, that confidence, that tuning, and then you realize, wait, I can do this. And then it becomes a matter of, I did do this. So what else is out there for my body to accomplish? What are some other realms that I've never explored with my body that can feed into this positive relationship that I'm creating with my body? So I'm really glad that you shared that example. And it's kind of taken me back because I myself also was not a runner. I had friends from college. They're like, hey, they ran some half marathons and marathons. Like, why don't you come and run? I'm like, I can't run. Like 13 miles, half marathon. I can't do that. My body's not gonna be able to take that. And then I'm like, oh, I started training. You can do this. So similar to you, never a runner. Yeah. I can totally relate. Yeah. Marathon though, my mind's already telling me, I don't know if I can do that. But now you're hearing your story. It's like, I could probably do that.
You can. Yeah. It's just, do you want to? That's the other thing. Sometimes we get these ideas in our heads that it's like, oh, I have to do this to prove that this and that. And it's like, take the pressure off of yourself. Like, do you want to do that? Is that something that's interesting to you? Yes. Okay. Then let's experiment and see if there are ways that we can make that happen. And looking at it as an experiment, as a little challenge, rather than like, I must do this or I am a failure of a human. It's like, stop that. Like, just see if you can, because more than likely the answer is yes. And if you take it lightly, you're going to be more patient with yourself because you're not going to expect such perfection along the way. And I mean, even running the marathon, like it was not like a perfection, like it was very hard. But I was able to do it because I trusted in the training that I did. And I really wanted to. But if you're doing something that you actually don't care about, which is why a lot of people get frustrated with exercise routines and like diets and whatever, is that you don't actually care about losing weight. You want to feel good enough in your body. And there are other ways to do that. And the truth is, even if you do lose the weight or change your face or whatever it is that you're trying to do, you can't fix an inside problem with an outside solution. So you're just going to redirect that insecurity towards the next thing that's making you feel not good enough until you face the insecurity and say, okay, what is it that I'm really trying to do here? Why do I feel like I need to prove this to myself or to other people? Because the answer probably is you don't. You're just looking for some other form of validation that you can actually develop within yourself.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I think the great message that came out of this is really being able to find what it is that you are particularly interested in and use that as your guiding pole, because really all these external sources of validation really have no merit when it comes to doing tasks or doing things with your body that are really colored from the outside. It's not really something that you want. So as a result, why do you even need to seek that out? You're going to end up disappointing yourself more so in the process of following that external voice. Whereas if you follow your internal voice, you'll see something even greater, something grander. So I hope that the audience today really takes away from this, that, start to tune into your own inner voice, look at, the interest that you have for your own body and looking to explore your body for yourself, not for anyone else, but for yourself. And when you're able to do that, that's when, like Rebekah was mentioning, you're going to be able to build that confidence within your body, build that skill, and that will, as a result, emanate in so many other aspects of your life. Running a marathon, what else is next after this that I can do with my body? Remember, do it for yourself. And so, Rebekah, I love to end off each and every single one of my episodes with my guests with this final segment I call the 3 keys to relationships. And so I'm really curious to hear your answers with regards to these questions. And so these are questions I like to ask to gauge my guests' insight into their own relationship management philosophy. And so these questions pertain to any and all relationships. So social relationships with friends, family, romantic partners, business relationships, what have you. So the first question I have is, what's your number one relationship red flag?
So as far as any relationship, red flags, someone who speaks negatively about themselves or others. Like that's a red flag, because if they have this negative lens that they are viewing themselves or other people, it's going to bring you down. So specifically, if it was in a romantic relationship, the red flag that I would say there is someone who, is very critical of others or themselves, because there's always going to be something to criticize about any situation. We live on planet Earth. We are human beings. No one who walks among us is perfect, and no situation is perfect. So there's always going to be something to focus on that's not going well, but there's also always something to focus on that is going well.
Exactly.
And so surrounding yourself with positive people, not to a point where you're unrealistic about, what's actually going on. You can't be in denial and just be like, everything is fine. But things are never as bad as you feel that they are. And if you're always looking for something bad, you will find it. So surround yourself with people who are looking for the good, and you will find that, and then that will expand.
Yeah. And I think that kind of goes back to the idea of tuning. It's like you can tune internally yourself, but also you can tune externally with the people you have in your life. If you were going to tune in to provide that value, to provide that practical positivity, not just unrealistic positivity, it's going to then emanate in so many other different ways in your life. So, folks, like Rebekah was mentioning, find that positivity in other people, because that's going to help shape and influence the confidence. And that can go into the confidence with your body, but confidence just altogether within your life. So the second question I have is, what's the most underrated relationship quality in your opinion?
The most underrated, or maybe the most unappreciated, is people who see you for more than what you offer them. People who see you for more than a body, people who see you for more than your money or your status or whatever it is on the external that could be seen as attractive. People who really see you is wildly underrated, because we all are so superficial in the way that we judge ourselves and judge other people. So if you can find someone who really sees the depth of who you are, that is a gift.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious, what do you think feeds into people's idea that they have to find value from those exterior elements of an individual? Do you think, like, I'm curious, I've been having this conversation with other friends with technology. Does technology, as a result of using that as an exterior surface of your own image, is that feeding into that external source of validation from your life? Or kind of how do you think it's best to find those relationships that are solely based on the internal worth of an individual, their personality, their own dreams and aspirations, versus the exterior, the physical body, the money, the status?
Well, the only way for someone to know you deeply is for you to show them who you are deeply. So it's kind of like you need to be vulnerable enough to be real and to not hide behind the surface level things that are easy to be accepted for, especially as women. If you're an attractive woman, it's so easy to be accepted for that. Like, how easy is it to go out and get a date or whatever? Like, if you're an attractive woman, like, it's not hard. But if you are always leaning on that and leading with that, you are going to attract shallow people who only care about that. And so you need to lead with some vulnerability, lead with something that is innately you, actually your heart, And this is in friendships, this is in anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then the people who are right for you will be attracted to that. And then the people who are shallow will be like freaked out and be like, oh, okay, I don't know what to do with that. I'm just going to leave. So the way to attract that is to be that. And it's hard. It's scary. It takes confidence to do that. But that's the only way that you can. And I think technology just gives a lot of opportunity to have all these different people that you can connect with. I don't think that technology is to blame for any of it. It's just magnifying what has already existed in our culture, which is we praise beauty, money, status, power. That's what we praise.
Right.
But if you want to actually have like relationships that are meaningful, you need to start valuing other characteristics. You need to start valuing things like honesty, trust, dependability, vulnerability, things like that. And so the more you can be that, the more you will attract people like that in your life.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's funny because I've done this in the past couple of years where I used to have that mental barrier of not wanting to be vulnerable. And then I started being vulnerable with some of my friends. And then I figured out who are really my true friends as a result of that vulnerability. And so I think for the audience, it is tough. It is tough at first because you don't want to show that. You don't want to get down into the deep end. But in reality, when you think about it, you actually do. It's a weird kind of paradox where you do, but you don't. So,
right. Because you don't want to be friends with people who only value you for surface level things.
Right.
Like you don't. But it's like, oh, you also don't want to be rejected.
Right.
But they're not really, someone who's going to reject you is not your person. Like you will find other people. So don't be afraid. Just do it.
There you go. Just do it, folks. Just do it. So the last and final question I have is, what would you say is your own mantra or slogan for relationship management? And so I can give a little bit of context. So this podcast centers itself around the idea that we don't make relationships, but we make relationships better. So I'm curious if you had to kind of come up with your own slogan or mantra for relationships, what would that kind of look like?
Well, I always say you get what you allow.
Okay.
So whether that is in a business relationship, a romantic relationship, friendship, if you are being treated a certain way and you don't like it, if you allow it to continue, that is what is going to continue to be attracting. You're going to attract that same energy into your life until you stop allowing it. You say, no, like I'm not going to deal with this anymore. Or you give that person the opportunity to change their behavior. But it's really, you have so much more control over the quality of the relationships that you have in your life. It's just, do you have the courage to be okay with the people in your life changing? It may not always come from the same person, the good relationships, but have the courage to stand up for yourself and to attract the energy that you want in your relationships.
Yeah, I think that's so eloquently put. The fact that you can allow people to feed into your own into the quality of your relationships. And so if you're able to then, I always say control what you can control. And so like you mentioned, control who you allow into your life, control the type of energy you bring into your life, because that's not out of your control. That is all in your control. I think people often forget that because they're like, oh, I'm going to let this person down. Oh, I don't know what my life will look like, but you're going to let yourself down. And you had the control in the first place. So, take advantage of that. Make sure that you are cultivating healthy relationships and, harking back to the entire conversation around the relationship to your body. You allow the thoughts, your own philosophy around how you find value in your body to shape and color how you then treat your body. So allow for those healthy thoughts and those healthy value systems to color how you shape and navigate your relationship to your body. Like Rebekah was mentioning, explore, tune, like with the violin example, tune with your body, find ways in which, oh, I thought that I can't wear makeup. Let me try going a day to day out in public without makeup. Oh, I didn't die. Okay, what else is next? Exercise. I always need to exercise to keep fit. This is kind of a physical aesthetic ideal, but my body feels so much better when I allow it to rest and I give it that time to really heal and recover. I never gave that to myself. And so I think folks, make sure that you're able to really allow for that great healthy energy that Rebekah was mentioning. And I'm so excited to see you spreading this message across the world, Rebekah. I know that this has been the type of content, the type of messaging that's been really lacking across the world for so many years on end. And you're really leading the way in terms of reshaping the idea and the philosophy around how women approach their body. And so I'm excited to see where you go forward with this. I'd love to see you. I know you've mentioned that you've coached thousands. I know it's going to turn into millions, at some point in the future. So, and I hope that as a result, women are going to be leading their lives confidently, as your entire platform is called Confidently She. And folks, check out Rebekah's podcast, Confidently She. Whenever I listen to the jingle, I'm like grooving out and dancing to it because it's such a catchy jingle that I think you all are going to get hooked on that. And then the actual like content Rebekah's mentioning in each of her episodes is absolutely phenomenal. Regardless, man or woman, it's great information to really, take in and help you kind of rewire that philosophy. So Rebekah, this has been such a great conversation. I enjoyed learning so much from your experience, so much from your own practice of coaching people and learning from their own experiences. And I hope that the audience really takes away a lot of great insights from this episode. So thanks so much, Rebekah.
Thanks for having me. It was great. Always happy to share.
Hey everyone, my name is Shadman Rahman, and thanks for tuning in to my YouTube channel today. I hope you found this episode of the Between Us podcast enjoyable, and that you're walking away feeling entertained, inspired, and/or motivated. If you particularly enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and smash the like button down below and leave your thoughts in the comments section. And if you'd like to go ahead and keep up with the podcast, go ahead and follow our social media. And please go ahead and subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell, so that way you can find out about new episodes as soon as they're released. Until next time, everyone, take care, and we'll see you all in the next episode.